If someone told me a year ago that my sister would tear our family apart, I would have laughed in their face, but now here I am, holding onto the shards of the life we once had, wondering if anything will ever feel whole again. Let me take you back to the moment it all began, when my world shattered with one text message. It was a normal Sunday afternoon, the kind of day where everyone's supposed to relax and pretend like life isn't as chaotic as it really is. I was scrolling through my phone, half listening to the TV in the background, when a notification popped up. It wasn't meant for me. It was a message from my brother-in-law, Alex, but instead of going to my sister, Emily, it came to me. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a wrong number situation, but the message was clear. Too clear. I can't stop thinking about last night, you have to tell her or I will. My heart stopped. I read it 3 times before it hit me. Alex wasn't just talking to some random person, he was talking to someone he'd been with, someone close enough to tell her. And that someone wasn't me, it was Emily, my sister. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. I wanted to believe it was some sort of misunderstanding, but the more I thought about it, the more the pieces fell into place. The late-night arguments between Emily and Alex, the sudden, unexplained distance between them. The way Emily would disappear for hours, always brushing it off with flimsy excuses. But the text was proof. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I wanted to believe there was another explanation, so I did the one thing I promised myself I'd never do. I snooped. I opened Alex's social media, his DMs, his photos, and that's when I saw it. A picture of Emily, but not just any picture. This wasn't a family photo or a candid shot from some vacation. It was taken late at night in a hotel room, her hair a mess, her lips curled into a sly, satisfied smile. The caption, when it's wrong, but it feels so right. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Scream. Cry. Do anything but sit there feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. Emily was my sister, my blood. She was supposed to be the one person in the world I could trust. And yet here she was, tearing apart her own marriage. And for what? For Alex, the same man who promised to love her forever. I couldn't keep this to myself, but how do you tell someone their life is a lie? The next morning, I went to Emily's house. My hands were shaking the entire drive over. When she opened the door, she smiled like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just destroyed everything. Hey, what's up? She said, her voice as cheery as ever. I couldn't even look her in the eye. We need to talk, I said, stepping past her into the living room. She hesitated, her smile faltering. What's going on? I didn't mince words. I pulled out my phone and showed her the text, the photo, everything. Her face went pale. For a moment, she didn't say anything. She just stared at the screen, her hands trembling as she tried to form a coherent sentence. I can explain, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Explain? I snapped. Explain what, Emily? That you've been sneaking around with Alex? That you've been lying to everyone who loves you? What is there to explain? Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't let up. She needed to hear this. She needed to understand what she'd done. She broke down, sobbing into her hands, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then she said something that stopped me cold. It wasn't just Alex, she whispered. I froze. What do you mean? She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. He wasn't the only one. My stomach churned. She told me everything. How it started with Alex, how their marriage had grown cold and distant, how she'd convinced herself that finding comfort in someone else's arms was the only way to feel alive again. But Alex wasn't enough. There were others. A coworker. A friend from college. Even a stranger she'd met at a bar. She didn't try to justify it. She just spilled it all. Like confessing would somehow make it better. But it didn't. It made it worse. So much worse. I left without saying another word. I couldn't look at her, couldn't stand to be in the same room as her. I needed space. I needed time to think. But time didn't help. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Emily hadn't just betrayed Alex. She'd betrayed all of us. Our family. The trust we built over a lifetime. I wanted to protect her, to keep this from spiraling out of control, but I knew that wasn't possible. The truth was out there now, and it was only a matter of time before it came crashing down. When Alex found out, it was like a bomb went off. He confronted her in front of the entire family, yelling, accusing, demanding answers. Emily tried to defend herself, but there was no point. The damage was done. Our parents were devastated. They couldn't believe their daughter, the one they'd raised to be kind and loyal, could do something like this. But the worst part? Emily didn't seem sorry. Not really. She cried and begged for forgiveness, but there was something in her eyes, something cold and unrepentant, that told me she didn't regret what she'd done. She only regretted getting caught. The fallout was worse than I could have imagined. Alex filed for divorce, of course, and Emily moved back in with our parents, her life in shambles. But the scandal didn't stay within our family. People talk. Friends, neighbors, even co-workers. Everyone knew. And the more people found out, the more the rumors spread. Suddenly, our family wasn't just dealing with betrayal, we were dealing with humiliation. And yet, through it all, Emily acted like the victim. She blamed Alex for neglecting her, blamed our parents for putting too much pressure on her, blamed me for exposing her secrets. But she never blamed herself. That's what hurt the most. To this day, I don't know if our family will ever recover. We're still picking up the pieces, trying to figure out how to move forward. But one thing is certain, the sister I thought I knew is gone, and in her place is someone I can barely recognize. But as much as I wish I could forget what happened, the truth is I can't. Emily's choices didn't just destroy her marriage, they changed the way I see her, the way I see our family, and honestly the way I see myself. Because here's the thing, betrayal doesn't happen in a vacuum. It ripples outward, touching everything and everyone in its path, and no matter how much you try to pick up the pieces, the cracks never really go away. There's one moment I'll never forget. A family dinner a few months after everything came out. My parents insisted on keeping things normal, as if sitting at the same table would somehow fix what was broken. Emily was there, quiet and subdued, her eyes downcast. Alex, of course, wasn't. He hadn't spoken to any of us since the divorce papers were finalized, and honestly, I didn't blame him. The tension in the room was unbearable. My dad tried to make small talk, asking Emily about her new job, but her answers were clipped, her tone defensive. My mom just sat there, staring at her plate, like she couldn't decide whether to cry or scream. And then, out of nowhere, my younger brother, Matt, who'd been silent through the entire ordeal, slammed his fork down on the table. Are we really just going to sit here and pretend everything's fine? He snapped, his voice trembling with anger. The room went silent. What do you want us to do? Emily shot back, her voice sharp. Drag this out forever? I made a mistake, okay? Can we move on now? Matt laughed bitterly. A mistake? You didn't just make a mistake, Emily. You blew up your marriage, you humiliated this family, and now you're acting like we're the problem for not getting over it fast enough. It was the first time anyone had said out loud what we were all thinking, and for a moment I thought Emily might actually take responsibility, might finally admit that what she did was more than just a mistake. But instead, she doubled down. You don't know what it was like, she said, her voice shaking. You don't know how miserable I was, how trapped I felt. Alex didn't care about me. He didn't love me the way I needed him to. I was dying inside. And that justifies what you did. Matt shot back. If you were unhappy, you should have left him. Not this. That dinner ended in chaos, with Matt storming out and my parents desperately trying to calm everyone down, but the damage was done. And as I watched Emily retreat to her old bedroom, I realized something that broke my heart. She wasn't sorry, not really. She was ashamed, yes, humiliated by the fallout. But deep down, she didn't think she was wrong. She thought she was the victim. In the months that followed, our family fractured even more. Matt moved out, refusing to have anything to do with Emily. My parents tried to stay neutral, but it was obvious they were struggling to reconcile the daughter they'd raised with the woman she'd become. As for me, I tried to keep the peace. Tried to hold on to the idea that somehow we could come back from this. But the truth is, I wasn't sure we could. And then, one day, Alex reached out. It was a simple text, a single sentence that sent my heart racing. We need to talk. I didn't know what to expect when I met him. Part of me thought he might want to vent. to unload all the anger and pain he'd been carrying. But when I saw him, I realized he wasn't angry anymore. He just looked tired. "Why did you call me?" I asked, my voice hesitant. He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. "Because I need to know something," he said finally. "Did you know about Emily? Did you know what she was doing?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. "No," I said quickly. "I didn't know." Not until I trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Alex nodded, his expression unreadable. "I figured as much," he said quietly. But I had to ask. For a moment, we just sat there in silence, and then he said something that caught me completely off guard. "I don't hate her," he said. "I thought I did for a long time. But now, I just feel sorry for her. And for us. For what we lost." I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to defend Emily, to remind Alex of the good times they'd had. But another part of me, the part that still felt the sting of her betrayal, couldn't find the words. "I'm sorry," I said finally, "for everything." Alex gave me a sad smile. "Me too." That conversation stuck with me for weeks. It made me realize that as much as I wanted to hate Emily for what she'd done, I couldn't. Because hating her wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't heal the wounds or undo the damage. The only thing I could do, the only thing any of us could do, was try to move forward. But moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending like nothing happened. Because what Emily did wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice, a series of choices, that changed all of our lives forever. And while I'll always love her, I'll never look at her the same way again. Sometimes late at night, I think about the family we used to be. The laughter, the closeness, the way we could count on each other no matter what. And I wonder if we'll ever get that back. But deep down, I know the answer. Some things, once broken, can never be repaired.